Well, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon also to those of you who are watching live on Facebook or YouTube. Today, I am announcing my decision in the shooting by a Phoenix police officer that resulted in the death of Christian Diaz-Rendon back on January the 26th of this year. As county attorney, it is my duty to review every officer-involved shooting that happens in Maricopa County. First, I want to talk a little bit about the process so that you understand what I am looking at and how I approach each incident. When there is a law enforcement involved shooting, an outside law enforcement agency handles the investigation. The detectives send all their reports and supporting evidence to my office so that it can be reviewed by me and our Critical Incident Review Board, which is comprised of senior attorneys, detectives, and civilians. Each member makes a recommendation, but ultimately the decision is mine. We analyze the criminal investigation, review the evidence, and determine if the officer broke the law using the same standard that we use in every other criminal case. My decision has nothing to do with whether departmental policies and procedures were followed, although we certainly factor that in. It also does not determine whether or not there is civil liability on the part of the agency or the officer. Those matters are left to the individual agencies regarding the policies and procedures, and the civil court regarding civil liability. Before I continue, I do want to extend my sincere condolences to Christian Diaz-Rendon's family. I cannot imagine the terror that they went through that night. This was an absolutely tragic and heartbreaking situation. And I just want you to know that I recognize that your husband's, your father's final act of protecting his family should never be forgotten and was truly heroic. Over the last several months, the Department of Public Safety's Major Incident Division has been investigating the shooting and recently presented their findings to my office. We reviewed the evidence gathered by DPS. That included analyzing departmental reports, reviewing body-worn camera and home surveillance videos, listening to all of the 911 calls and radio dispatch traffic, watching interviews, and reviewing all other available evidence. We're not only determining whether a crime was committed, but we are determining that if a crime was committed, is there a reasonable likelihood of conviction, meaning would a unanimous jury convict? There are many factors that go into this, and we also look to past court opinions regarding the use of force. In Graham versus Connor, the United States Supreme Court ruled that the reasonableness of a particular use of force must be judged from the perspective of a reasonable officer on the scene rather than with the 20/20 vision of hindsight, meaning we must analyze the use of force based on the facts and information available to the officer at the time, not what we find out after. We must also ask, would a reasonable officer in the same situation act in the same way? So the decision to use force is evaluated based on what the officer knew at the time of the shooting, even if the facts turned out to be wrong in hindsight. Arizona law demands that we judge their actions by that standard. We also look at the totality of the circumstances and weigh if they support the officer's belief that either they themselves or another person was in danger. And finally, our state law says that police officers are justified in using deadly force to defend himself or a third person from what the peace officer reasonably believes to be the use or imminent use of deadly physical force. Taking into consideration all of that and the facts of the case, I am not filing charges against Phoenix Police Officer Jason Valenzuela. Based on all of the evidence, Officer Valenzuela reasonably believed that there was an imminent danger to others, and that he had no choice but to fire his weapon to protect them. Now I'm going to take you through some of the evidence. Some of this has already been released by the Phoenix Police Department in their critical incident video, and I've reviewed, I want you to know, far more than this, far more than what I'm going to show you today. But I want to set some clear boundaries up front. I'm walking a tight line. I'm trying to be very transparent about my decision making, but I also have to protect the rights of another person who is charged in this case. And let me remind you that charges are not evidence, and people in the United States of America are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. So let me be clear. Everything that I'm about to tell you is to explain my charging decision regarding the officer, and to give you a better understanding of what may have been known or believed by the officer at the time of this dynamic and chaotic situation. It is not intended to discuss the charges against the other person. So for this reason, I can't share with you all the evidence I have reviewed, but here is what I can tell you. On January the 26th of this year, a suspect drove to the victim's home near 75th Avenue and Lower Buckeye Road. He got out of a truck armed with a shotgun and began firing into the home that had 10 people inside, including children. The suspect grabbed 2 handguns and fired more shots into the home, actually striking one person. He then broke in through a back patio door and got into a struggle with Christian and another man in the house. While this was happening, several calls were made to 911 from neighbors and from people inside the house. Now I'm going to play a portion of 2 of these calls that were made from inside the house for you now, to help convey what was happening and the type of scene that officers were walking into.
Phoenix 911, what is the address of your emergency?
Please, somebody shooting my house. They shooting my kids, please.
You said... Okay, what's going on, ma'am? I can't understand
Somebody's shooting the house.
You said someone's in your house?
They're shooting the house.
We don't know who it is. Somebody's at our house and they're shooting at us.
They're shooting at you?
Please, yes, please send help. We have kids here. We don't know who it is. We don't know if they're still here, but they're shooting. They shot my brother in his ankle.
Okay. It looks like we have lots of help headed your way. You said someone shot your brother in the ankle?
Yes. He's bleeding out here. Slowly.
Okay, let me get on with the fire department, okay?
Please send whatever near officers you have.
Okay. Let me get them on the phone so they can help you guys stop that bleeding, okay?
Okay.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
There's a guy outside.
I have officers on the way out there. Can you tell me, did you see anybody shooting?
Okay, yes. There's somebody who's shooting our house. He's fat. He has a gray sweater.
It was someone in a gray sweater?
Yeah, he opened, I don't know if it's our truck or his truck, but he opened it and he started taking stuff out and he started shooting the house with nonstop. He's outside. He's outside, please.
Is he still outside?
Yes, he's going for his truck. Please.
Okay.
He's fat. He moved. Please send help. He's getting in his truck. He's getting in his truck. Hurry.
Listen, I have a lot of help on the way out there, but I need you to try and calm down because it's hard for me to hear you, okay?
At 6:20 p.m., Officer Valenzuela and his partner were dispatched to the home with the information that a bald man in a pickup truck was actively shooting at the home. About 2 minutes later, they were advised the suspect had more than one gun and someone had been shot in the leg. At 6:24, 4 minutes later, the 2 officers arrived in the neighborhood and got out carrying their rifles. They encountered a neighbor who told them that there is a man shooting at people and pointed them to the correct home. He told the officers that the man was tall and bald and was reloading. If you look at the screens, I'm going to show you the body camera video from Officer Valenzuela and his partner from the point of that encounter and up to the shooting. This is a portion of the same video that has been released by Phoenix Police in their critical incident video.
All right. Which house? All right. Hey, hold.
We're being told that there's a party down the street, and suspect is still due for the standby.
Go inside. Where's he at? Jones, with me? Where's he at?
He's inside the house, he's shooting the people. Just go in there.
The shooter is inside of the house.
He's in there. It's like this top wall.
Gotcha.
Go in there.
Hey! Show me your hands!
No, it's not him.
Who? Which house?
Where's the shooter at? In the front of where? You need to go back inside. Hey, Henry. He's saying he's down by a white truck and he's reloading. He said something about kids, but he just keeps pointing towards the south. Go inside now. Okay, let us deal with it. Go inside. Here, Henry, we got two. We need more units here now, please. There's people screaming. We can't find the shooter.
Hey! Show me your hands!
In reviewing these videos, a few things stood out to me. First, the officers were told that the suspect was a bald man, and the victim, whom you will see, had a closely shaved head and also appeared to be bald. Second, the officers were told that the suspect was reloading and that someone was shooting kids in the house, leading them to believe that the threat was ongoing. And third, as you will see, the victim raised his head, stopped hitting the suspect, appeared to look at the officer, and then put his head back down as he punched the suspect one more time before being shot. Now let me be very clear about this. That is not to blame the victim in any way whatsoever. It is important, however, in context for when we talk about the officer's perspective at the time. This happened fast as the officer told him to show his hands. Now I'm going to play the video from the body camera side by side with video from a porch security camera in real time, and then I will play it in slow motion. Just so you know, we will not be showing the actual shooting.
Hey, show your f***ing hands!
We had to listen to the audio several times to understand what was being said. But that said, I can't ignore that in the chaos of all of this, a man yelled, "They've got him on the ground over here." Meanwhile, a woman screamed either, "The guy is on the floor already, come on, come on," or "The gun is on the floor already, come on," as the victim is on top of the suspect on the ground. At 6:26 and 43 seconds, approximately 5 seconds before the shooting, as officers are moving toward the house, dispatch sent out a radio call that someone inside the home said the shooter is down. I'm going to play that dispatch, and then I'm going to play the body camera video from that same time period.
One of our callers at 2907 South 73rd Drive is saying the shooter's down.
Hey, show your hands! No, it's not him. Hey, show your hands!
I took this into consideration that neither officer acknowledged or responded to the radio traffic, because this is happening simultaneously with a lot of yelling, and there's also loud music blaring from the suspect's pickup truck. Some of what is being told to officers is difficult to clearly make out without the benefit of replaying it. And finally, I'm going to play for you a portion of the officer's interview with detectives where he explains what he was seeing and what he was thinking when he fired.
So as I'm making my way to the front of the car, and I think this came from the woman in the front of the house. She said something, and I don't remember what that something was, but she said something, or in my mind I'm like, we have to go in now. And to this day, I don't know. But so I'm like, yeah. I mean, I do remember thinking, making that choice. I have to push up to the front door now, because like, to me, everything is sounding like there's people that are getting killed inside of the house. And that first guy who, like, you know, walked up to us the entire time, he's just like, "Go in now!" Like, he's just screaming in the background. So as I come around the car, you know, I like take like two or three, you know, I like walk up to the house, and at this point I'm like maybe halfway on the road, somewhere here-ish, and then so that's when I can start seeing inside of the house. But it's all like I'm like starting to see inside as I move up, and I see a body on the floor, and I can't tell if it's a guy or a female. I can't tell at this point. But the body on the floor is not moving whatsoever. So I'm thinking, yeah, this person has been shot. the first guy who came up to us said, "It's a bald guy, he's shooting." And as I get more close to the front door, I see a bald guy, and he's on top of the guy on the floor, and he's doing this to him. And I'm thinking, the guy on the floor is shot, and he's like shaking him, you know, stabbing him on the floor. I swear to God, that's what it looked like. So yeah, man, you know, at that point, like I knew, like I had no doubt that I had to shoot that guy. Because everybody was, you know, everybody was making it sound like this guy was a threat, and he was killing everybody inside. So yeah, I mean, I shot him.
You'll recall the witness had said the suspect was reloading, and that could lead someone to reasonably believe that the suspect was either out of ammunition or his guns were out of ammunition and now had a knife that he was using to stab someone. Now, before I take your questions, I mentioned that we have charged another person in this case. That charge is felony murder. Plainly speaking, state law says that when an individual engages in certain crimes like burglary or kidnapping that are so fraught with danger, a person can be held responsible to what happens to others as a result, regardless of who directly causes the death. For example, the getaway driver in a bank robbery can be held responsible for the death that occurs as a part of a robbery inside the bank. My review of Officer Valenzuela's actions was limited to whether he should be criminally liable for his action of shooting the victim. My decision that I am announcing today has absolutely no bearing on the case where felony murder is charged. The case involving the individual who is accused of shooting and entering the home before the officer-involved shooting occurred is now a separate criminal matter, so I will not answer questions touching on that case. I'm only here today to talk about the officer and my decision related to his actions. Now, I've given you as much information as I can ethically give you in an effort to be transparent, but I will answer any questions that I can. I want to conduct it in this way. First, I will answer any questions regarding this situation, and then we will move on to cases, other cases that you want to discuss. So if there are any questions related to this case.
Yeah, thank you for that, County Attorney Mitchell. Have you been in contact with Christian Diaz-Rendon's family, and what have those conversations been like?
I did reach out to their attorney. They are represented by counsel, and ethically, that's the appropriate person that I have to talk to. I don't want to go into the personal details of our personal conversation. What I will say is that I conveyed to him my heartfelt sympathies for what their family has gone through.
I know you mentioned that some folks, and you hit on this, alluded to it a little bit, but some folks wonder, right, it's 3 months after the fact, why does it take so long? And I know there's a process here. You're waiting on an investigation to finish. Is that fair to say?
Yes. In fact, it was just last week that we were presented the case in detail by DPS, and that's not to say that they took too long. There's, as you can imagine, a ton of information that has to be gone through both digital evidence, witness interviews, etc., and so it just does take time.
How do you respond to people who question whether your office can investigate a police department that you already work with on a daily, monthly basis?
Well, let me be clear. We don't investigate. Under state law, the police officer-involved shootings are investigated by an agency other than the shooting agency. That's why, although this is a Phoenix Police Department shooting, it was investigated by the Department of Public Safety. But it is our jurisdiction to look at cases like this and file charges when appropriate.
And then how do you respond to people who are concerned that police officers rarely get charged in situations where a civilian loses their life?
Yeah, it's very difficult, the situations that police officers find themselves in. They are summoned into an incident that they know nothing about. They're given limited information, sometimes conflicting information, and they do an incredibly hard job. I have to take that into account. Civilians do not find themselves in those types of situations on a regular basis like police officers do.
Hi. Did you give specific consideration to the fact that the officer did not see a firearm visually, the moments right before the shooting occurred?
Absolutely. I gave consideration to the totality of the facts.
Right. Can you expand at all on how that relates to the overall decision? I mean, he said in the interview we heard that he believed there may have been a knife involved, but no firearm. So responding with firearm force, is there any imbalance there?
No, I've seen plenty of people murdered with knives.
Perfect. Thank you.
County Attorney, thank you for taking our questions. This is a tough case because people have the ability to defend their home, their property, their family members, their own life with force. And in this case, the homeowner was subduing the intruder and the shooting suspect. Is there anything you've drawn as far as a conclusion in ways that police training can be improved or even legislation to prevent this type of incident from occurring again?
Well, I mean, it's just, I don't know how you can legislate chaos, and not to blame anybody for the chaos. It was a chaotic situation. I'm certain that the police will look at this and relook at it over and over again to draw whatever training lessons they can learn from it. My job specifically is to look and see whether criminal charges are appropriate.
In your tenure as county attorney, have you ever criminally charged a police officer in a police shooting before?
Yes.
How many times?
We have one case going right now. We've charged other officers with other things as well. I've also been part of the senior management team before I became county attorney that has recommended charges regarding that type of behavior.
I'm sure you can imagine there's going to be a part of our community that's going to say, you don't have to go over the facts again, but they're going to say that you have a reluctance to charge police officers in deadly incidents. How would you respond to some of that pushback?
My entire practice as a prosecutor and my administration as county attorney has always been very clear, and that is I follow the law. That's why I started with the law, and I will end with the law, because that's what I have to look at. Those are the standards. That doesn't make this not a tragic situation. If I could make this family whole, I would do so in a heartbeat, but I can't.
Thank you.
You mentioned the decision, obviously, final decision rests with you. When you meet with those senior attorneys and other folks on the board, was there consensus in that room?
You know, I'm not going to go into that because those are recommendations. What I will say is I feel very solid in the decision that I made. And I do listen to my senior advisors. Yeah, go ahead.
County Attorney Mitchell, I'm here for Dave Biscobing as he's out of town on assignment. We wanted to ask you about Dr. Chris Johnson. Why do you feel this doctor deserves prison time?
You know, Ashley, this case is set for trial actually fairly soon. I'm not going to make any comments about it. As I am doing in the other case that I just talked about with the charged individual, I have ethical responsibilities to not engage in pretrial publicity type situations where I am tainting the jury pool. So I'm not going to do that, but we will obviously present our case in court.
You know, the judge who oversaw the case for years openly said that he does not want to see Dr. Johnson go to prison. Are you weighing that? Does that give you pause?
You know, I've always invited courts to give me their opinion about a case, but I also have to recognize that a judge has not talked to victims. A judge has not reviewed the case like I have. They're operating under some limited information at the time. And we'll see, maybe the judge will feel differently after trial. I don't know. But yeah, I certainly take that into account.
Do you think the judge is wrong? Does he deserve prison time?
I think the judge is entitled to his opinion, and I respect it.
And it's being alleged that you're pushing for prison because police want you to. What do you say to that? Is there anyone from police influencing your decision?
Actually, Ashley, this very early on in my administration, I did set a policy about using guns, and if charges are filed, what the results would be. And so I'm following my policies. It has nothing to do with anybody reaching out to me. Nobody has reached out to me regarding that.
The former prison director did not get prison time?
Correct, he did not. He also did not fire his gun at police. He shot his sink before they got there.
And so you do or you don't believe he deserves
I distinguish between shooting a sink and shooting at people. Yes.
Okay. It's Nicole.
Good afternoon, County Attorney. Staying on the topic of Phoenix Police, so we continue to cover the investigation of Phoenix Police Sergeant Dustin Mullen, who, as you know, came to a student protest against ICE, armed and masked, telling Chandler officers that he wanted to let them assault him so they could be arrested and put in jail. In the midst of all that, he was splashed with some water, and Sergeant Mullen wanted to press charges for assault and disorderly conduct. Why did your office decline to prosecute and to follow up on that, looking at the videos that are available as evidence? Was this a very easy decision?
This was an easy decision for me to make. This was an individual who very clearly stated his intent to go out and incite a situation, and so we turned it down.
So he also said that he had other supporters on the way, some of them armed with rifles. I mean, what do you have to say about this behavior from a law enforcement officer?
Well, I mean, I know that Phoenix PD is looking at it, and obviously that's something that they're going to have to make some decisions about. At this point, the case that was presented to me was the one where it was assault on the officer, and I have made the decision not to file that.
And to go on further, you said the word inciting. Would you go as far to say he was baiting these kids more than actually using free speech?
I haven't gotten my thesaurus out on that, but I mean, inciting, I'll stay with inciting. That's what I believed he was indicating his intent was.
And in the initial press release from Chandler PD, they said a girl threw a water bottle at the counter-protester, a little bit different compared to the splash of water. What was your message to Chandler PD in turning it down, or was it just a short no? Do you is there sort of any disappointment in that decision of
my
that
message
submittal
to Chandler
for submitting those charges?
Yeah, I did not talk to the chief prior to my decision. It was just an easy decision to make.
And as someone who's worked in law enforcement as long as you have, do you feel like an incident like this with videos all over the internet, does that damage trust from the community between them and law enforcement? You know, I agree with the position that prosecutors, that law enforcement should be held to a high standard. And, you know, I stand by that. Thank you.
A just as tragic case, Rafael Montoya, who was sucker punched by a security guard at Club Downtown, recently spoke to the mother again. I'd like to know if you're reviewing that case and what do you think you missed the first time? I was under the understanding that that would happen.
No, that the re-review would happen? No, it was reviewed thoroughly at the time. Keep in mind that the case was submitted to us for forgery charges, and we made the decision to extensively review it for any other charges. We did a thorough review at the time. I was involved in that review, and so without additional information, and keep in mind, I mean, I reviewed all of the police reports. There were camera angles from every possible angle, I think, that I looked at. So the decision stands, but like I said, if there's additional information, I certainly would be willing to consider it.
You mentioned right now, that sometimes we don't know what officers encounter when they arrive to the scene. In this situation, it was over 2 minutes of 2 off-duty police officers watching this unfold. Should they be held accountable?
Well, I don't have any, there's no criminal case that's been submitted to me for their actions. I would refer you to the Phoenix Police Department as to any actions that they're taking against those officers.
So you would consider a review? Do you need more evidence in that situation for you to reconsider the case? I recently spoke to the mother, and that's what she hoped for.
Well, if there is additional evidence that could have a bearing on the charging decision, absolutely, we could re-review it. But there's no plan at this point because there is no additional evidence that's been presented since our review. So there's no plan at this point to re-review the case.
How worrisome is the criminal history of Rapport, his far-right ties and his videos? He's posted on social media himself, inciting violence and punching other people.
I always take into account, criminal histories when we're looking at something, but I have to caution the public about this. I think the public is under the perception that so much of that is coming in at trial that will somehow help prove the case. And the reality is, the way the law says that you cannot use other acts to prove that this particular act occurred. So the use of other acts to prove the case, and that's what I'm considering. Can I prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt? The use of other acts is extremely limited to certain situations. Even considering that, we did not believe that there was a reasonable likelihood of conviction in that case.
Would you consider it play-by-play like this? I mean, this is very appreciated, the transparency.
Oh, thank you. Actually, I believe at the time we did reveal some of that to some reporters, so I believe we did.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, has your office made a charging decision in the Centennial High School case involving Haley Beck and Angela Berlacca?
No, at this point, I would say that the investigation is ongoing. There is a critical witness, and I'm not going to go into any further detail, that has yet to be interviewed, and so we are waiting for that to happen.
And not sure if you'd be willing to answer, but do you plan to pursue the death penalty against Ledzema Garcia?
I'm sorry, against?
In the Diaz case that you just mentioned, the felony murder.
Okay. We will go, because that is a first-degree murder case.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't hear the name you gave. Because that's a first-degree murder case, it will go through the same process that every other case has gone through. I have not made that decision at this point.
All right, thank you.
Hi, thank you for taking our questions. At the end of the day, a family that was under stress called the police and then became victims of themselves. What do you say to families, to people who find themselves in that situation, who may be afraid to call the police?
Yeah, my heart goes out to them. I mean, this was just a tragic series of events. Some of it was just the confusion and chaos of the situation. But obviously the police were there with the intent to try to save lives. Had this person been the person and the police not reacted and some innocent died, we'd be having a completely different conversation here.
Just kind of coming back to the Haley Beck and Angela Berlacca case, when do you expect there to be a decision made on charges?
Well, as I said, there is a critical witness that still has to be interviewed, and so as soon as we get that done, or the police get that done, we will take a look at what we have.
Is there a timeline?
It's up to the critical witness.
Could anyone potentially face charges for breaking mandatory reporting laws?
Sure, that's always a possibility. You know, I'm obviously, that's a law you'd never want to have to prosecute because you just hope people would have the common sense to report. But if there are situations where people who are mandatory reporters did not do that, in this case, we certainly will take a look at that because I take that very seriously.
And this is a really big case, obviously. It's been across social media, locally. Have you spoken to anyone on the PUSD governing school board?
I have heard from somebody from the school board this week, and I need to get back to that person. But I have not had any actual conversations with anybody, no.
What's your message? Because at this point, I feel like we've seen so many cases of teachers having inappropriate relationships with students. Obviously, you know, there's criminal aspects to that, depending on age. And what's kind of your message to the community or to teachers? I think things have changed since students and teachers kind of had access to cell phones, and you know, those lines are kind of crossed. How do you respond to a lot of these cases just coming out recently?
Wow, how much time do you have? Here's my message. There is a mandatory reporting law in Arizona, and it applies to the parents of the minor, it applies to school personnel, it applies to clergy, it applies to police officers, DCS workers, medical professionals, behavioral health professionals. You are a mandatory reporter. If you have a reasonable belief, which is a low standard, that a child is or has been abused sexually, physically, or a victim of neglect, you are required to report that to either law enforcement or DCS. I would recommend that you report it to both. Not doing so is a crime. Not doing so subjects your agency or your organization or your school or your church to liability. So I would urge people to become very familiar with 133620, and I would also encourage educators to become familiar with 15514. Those are your requirements. I also would point them to the Arizona Prosecuting Attorney Advisory Council's website that has a training on it that is specifically geared toward school personnel. It is mandated by state law that you follow that training, and it is available on APAC's website. I would encourage you to watch that immediately if you have not done so.
What role do teachers play in, you know, cutting off communication outside of school? You know, what's your message there to just teachers, especially at a time when we are struggling to hire enough educators?
You know, here's the thing. That's why you have policies, because those side conversations, while maybe not nefarious in any way, oftentimes if you have a strong policy that sets boundaries, you can stop those conversations from going forward, those personal conversations with students, as opposed to the student's teacher or to the group as a whole. And so that's why it's really important for school districts to have those types of what I would call boundary policies, to kind of cut that off at the start. It's critical. And, you know, teachers do a really, really hard job. And I don't want to be coming down on teachers. Teachers, you know, let me also say to you, you're at the front lines of this. I'm not at the front lines of this. You're at the front lines of this because you're the ones that are going to get reports made to you or see things. And, you know, your job is to report, especially if a child comes to you and discloses to you. That is a sacred trust that the child is giving you by saying, this is happening to me. They may not tell you everything, but the fact that they're telling you anything at all, they're asking you two questions. They're asking you, are you going to believe me, and are you going to do anything about it? And if your answer to those questions is no, then the likelihood of that child coming forward again is dramatically lessened. So please report.
Back to the Peoria Centennial High situation.
Okay.
I've heard some rumblings that this witness or victim that is yet to be interviewed may be unwilling to do an interview with police, or has at this point refused to sit down. If you don't have a cooperating victim in a case like this, does it make it prosecutorable? That's the word?
Well, I knew what you meant by it.
Yeah.
You know, I have prosecuted cases without a victim's cooperation. I'm not answering your question specifically to this case, but I will tell you, sometimes it can be done, but there are times that it cannot be done. And I'm not saying who the critical witness is, but obviously this is something we need to go forward.
In terms of the mandatory reporter law, your office has worked extensively to make the public aware that this is a thing, educators to be aware, principals aware, everybody be aware. What is the criminal penalty for this if somebody doesn't report but has knowledge of this? And is it for a body or is it for a person in terms of who can be
Oh, I see what you like.
penalties for a district, a school, or is it for a specific person?
Gotcha. Generally speaking, we're talking about specific people, although certainly I've seen more than one church, school, etc., sued for millions and millions of dollars. But in terms of the criminal law, failing to report a sex offense is a Class 6 felony, which carries either probation or up to 2 years in prison. And then failing to report either physical abuse or neglect is a Class 1 misdemeanor, which carries up to 6 months in jail or probation.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Okay. Thank you all very much.